Ancient mariners mapped the world with impossible accuracy. Forgotten charts and secret diagrams reveal they knew far more than history books admit. By the end of this exploration, you will see our entire timeline of human discovery in a startling new light. We will uncover maps that depict continents centuries before their official finding and ask how sailors could chart lands buried under miles of ice. What hidden knowledge was lost to the waves of time? What does that tell us about the true capabilities of our ancestors? This journey into the unknown begins with a single piece of parchment that defies all explanation. Are you ready to question everything you thought you knew about the past? In a quiet corner of an Istanbul library, a single piece of parchment lay forgotten for centuries. Its rediscovery in 1929 would send shockwaves through the world of historical research. This was the map of the Ottoman admiral Piri Reis, drawn in the year 1513. At first glance, it appeared to be a remarkable chart of the known world, but a closer look revealed something profoundly puzzling. The map depicted the eastern coast of South America with stunning accuracy, a feat that should have been impossible for the cartographers of that era. Yet its most baffling feature lay far to the south. The map appeared to show the northern coastline of Antarctica, a continent that would remain officially undiscovered for another 300 years. Even more incredibly, this depiction matched the shape of the landmass hidden beneath miles of ice, a geography only modern sonar technology could confirm. How could a 16th century admiral have known what lay under a frozen desert? Piri Reis himself provided a clue, though it only deepened the enigma. He wrote that his world map was a compilation pieced together from many older source charts, some of which dated back to the time of Alexander the Great. He referenced maps from the libraries of Alexandria and even spoke of charts used by what he called the Latin sailors, a term for ancient Mediterranean seafarers. This suggests he was not the original author of this profound geographical knowledge, but merely a curator of information passed down through the ages. The real mystery, then, is not the map itself, but the lost civilizations or the advanced maritime networks that originally produced these source documents. Could a global trading network have existed in deep antiquity, one that connected cultures across the oceans and allowed for the systematic charting of the entire planet? The precision of the coastlines implies not just accidental landfalls, but deliberate, sustained exploration. Experts remain divided on the origins of this knowledge. Some propose that a pre-Ice Age civilization with seafaring capabilities we can scarcely imagine mapped the world before a great cataclysm reshaped it. Others suggest a more gradual process where generations of unknown Polynesian, Phoenician, or other maritime cultures slowly pieced together the puzzle of the continents, their collective knowledge preserved in scattered Portolan charts that later fell into the hands of men like Piri Reis. Without satellites or advanced instruments, how did they achieve such accuracy? The answer might lie in a forgotten science of celestial navigation and painstaking observation, a tradition of exploration so sophisticated that its methods are lost to us today. The Piri Reis map stands as a silent testament to this erased chapter in human history, a single surviving page from a vast, global atlas we can only dream of. While the Piri Reis map hints at southern secrets, another document points west. Tucked away at Yale University lies the Vinland Map, a chart that seems to show the northeastern coast of North America, a land its creators labeled Vinland. This single name carries immense weight, directly referencing the Norse sagas that tell of Leif Erikson's voyage around the year 1000. If this map is genuine, it was drawn decades before Christopher Columbus set sail, fundamentally rewriting the story of who first connected the continents. It depicts Greenland with remarkable accuracy and hints at a landmass beyond, suggesting this geographical knowledge was recorded and preserved. Yet from the moment it came to public attention in the 1950s, the map has been shrouded in fierce debate. Scientific analysis has produced conflicting results. Some carbon dating tests suggested the parchment itself was from the correct era, yet ink analysis raised red flags, with some researchers detecting a modern synthetic compound that would indicate a clever forgery. Other experts counter that the controversial compound could be a result of natural degradation or contamination over centuries. This scientific stalemate means the map's authenticity remains one of history's great unsolved puzzles. But the controversy itself is revealing. Why does the possibility of a pre-Columbian map of America provoke such strong reactions? It challenges a deeply ingrained Eurocentric narrative, the idea that the world's continents were discovered by a handful of European explorers in a specific age. The Vinland map, even as a question, forces us to consider a messier, more interconnected past. It suggests that transoceanic contact might have been an occasional, if not common, occurrence long before we thought it possible. If Norse sailors could cross the Atlantic and their knowledge could be charted, who else might have made the journey? What other lands were glimpsed by early mariners, their findings kept as secret trade routes or lost to time in forgotten ship logs? Each of these forgotten maps is a piece of a vast, global jigsaw puzzle, one that depicts a world far more traveled and knowledgeable than our history books have traditionally allowed. While some maps were inherited from antiquity, others were born from a fierce race for power. In the year 1502, a man named Alberto Cantino committed an act of high-stakes espionage, smuggling a priceless world map out of Portugal. This was the Cantino Planisphere, a document so valuable it was worth the risk of his life. It was not merely a chart, but a visual trophy of Portuguese dominance in the Age of Discovery, capturing the latest intelligence from voyages along the African coast and across the Atlantic to Brazil. The map's rendering of Brazil's bulging coastline is startlingly precise, a clear signal that Portuguese explorers were not just accidentally bumping into new lands, but were systematically mapping them for crown and country. This was knowledge as a weapon, and every newly drawn bay or river mouth was a strategic advantage. The creation of this map was fueled by the successes of navigators like Vasco da Gama, who had recently unlocked the sea route to India. The Cantino Planisphere consolidates this hard-won geographic data, presenting a connected view of the world that was, until then, fragmented and mythical. Its accuracy from West Africa to the Caribbean reveals a profound shift. Mariners were no longer cautiously hugging coastlines, they were confidently navigating open oceans, and their charts prove it. This map was a state secret, and its theft for an Italian patron illustrates a crucial point. In this era, a single accurate map was more valuable than a shipload of gold. Nations actively worked to conceal their discoveries with false charts and disinformation, while simultaneously spending fortunes to acquire the true maps of their rivals. This clandestine world of cartographic theft reveals maps not as passive records, but as active tools of empire and deception. The detailed coastlines on the Cantino Planisphere were not just artistic flourishes, they were declarations of sovereignty and pathways for future conquest. They suggest that the true extent of geographical knowledge in the royal courts of Europe was far more advanced than what was shared with the public. What we see in this stolen document is a snapshot of a hidden world, a planet that was becoming comprehensively known to a select few, while remaining a vast mystery to everyone else. This systematic charting of continents forces a compelling question. How much of this early global knowledge was actually a rediscovery of lands already mapped by forgotten seafarers? Far from the royal courts of Europe, another kind of map was being drawn, not on parchment but in the human mind. For centuries, Polynesian navigators undertook voyages of staggering distance across the Pacific, sailing double-hulled canoes across thousands of miles of open ocean to find specks of land. They settled islands from Hawaii to New Zealand, completing journeys that modern navigators would find daunting even with today's technology. How did they achieve this without compasses or written charts? Their secret was a living map, an oral tradition woven from the very fabric of the natural world. These master wayfinders, known as the PWO, learned to read a symphony of environmental cues. They memorized the star paths, knowing how specific stars would rise and set over particular islands. They watched the ocean itself, feeling the subtle refraction of swells as they bounced off distant land masses, a pattern they could sense through the hull of their canoe. They observed the flight paths of birds, knowing that a certain tern flying at dusk was heading toward a nest just over the horizon. This knowledge was not written down, but encoded in chants, stories, and intricate stick charts that represented wave patterns rather than landmasses. This was a dynamic, three-dimensional understanding of the sea, a navigational science passed from teacher to student through generations. It fundamentally challenges our very definition of a map. We often think of a map as a physical object, a drawing on a surface, but for the Polynesians, the map was a song. It was a mental database of celestial movements and ocean rhythms. Their canoe was not just a vessel, it was a moving point on this vast, invisible grid they could perceive all around them. This oral tradition ensured their survival and their ability to connect a diaspora of islands across the world's largest ocean. Their achievements force a profound question. If a map can be a story and a star can be a landmark, then how many other sophisticated systems of knowledge have been lost because they were never written down? The silent maps on parchment from the Old World tell one story of discovery, but the sung maps of the Pacific tell another, perhaps even more ancient one. The Mediterranean Sea, for medieval sailors, was not an empty blue expanse but a well-worn highway, its every curve and inlet committed to memory. This intimate, hard-won knowledge found its ultimate expression in the Portolan chart, a type of map so practical and precise it feels alien compared to the fanciful world maps of the same era. The oldest surviving example, the Carta Pisana from the late 13th century, is a stunning artifact drawn on animal skin. It depicts the coastlines of the Mediterranean and the Black Sea with an accuracy that would not be surpassed for centuries. This was not a map for princes to display their power, but a working tool for a ship's master, stained with salt water and marked by anxious fingers tracing a route home. Its surface is a web of straight lines radiating from central points, a navigational grid of room lines and wind roses. A sailor would simply lay a straight edge from his current port to his destination, note the compass bearing indicated by the lines, and set his course. This system bypassed the need for the latitude and longitude that would later define cartography, relying instead on the direct, empirical experience of direction and estimated distance. The sheer consistency of these charts across decades reveals their origin. They were not the product of a single brilliant cartographer, but the cumulative logbook of countless anonymous voyages. Imagine generation after generation of sailors, from the Phoenicians to the Genos, each one mentally noting the exact bearing to sail from one headland to the next, the time it took, the shape of a distinctive bay. This collective wisdom, this oral and mental database, was gradually compiled into these master charts. They are a visual representation of 1,000 whispered conversations in bustling port taverns, the shared secrets of men who knew the sea as their own backyard. How could they achieve such uniformity without standardized instruments? The answer lies in the relentless repetition of trade routes, the shared language of the sea, and the understanding that a small error in a bearing could mean missing a vital harbor entirely. The Portolan chart is a testament to a different kind of science, one built not in a university but on the rolling deck of a ship, a science of observation, memory, and survival. It proves that long before we could measure the world from the sky, we had already mapped it from the waves, not as a picture, but as a set of precise, repeatable instructions for crossing the known world. While European mariners guarded their secret charts, a world map of breathtaking scope was being compiled on the other side of the globe. The Kangnido Map, crafted in Korea in 1402, presents a panorama of the entire known world from an East Asian perspective. It is a monumental fusion of geographic traditions, weaving together precise Korean coastlines, the grand schematic lands of Chinese cartography, and startlingly accurate renderings of Africa and Europe drawn from Islamic sources. This single document is a visual testimony to the vibrant exchange of ideas along the Silk Road and across the Indian Ocean. The map shows an Africa with a recognizable southern tip, a detail European maps would not correctly depict for another century. How did Korean cartographers know the shape of a continent so far away? The answer lies in the invisible highways of knowledge. Muslim traders and scholars, possessing detailed charts from their voyages across the Indian Ocean, carried this geographic intelligence eastward. It was then synthesized with Chinese maps that charted the Middle Kingdom and its tributaries, and finally rendered with the local knowledge of Korean mapmakers. This was not a map born from one culture's exploration, but from a collaborative, intercontinental conversation. It fundamentally dismantles the notion that the medieval world was a collection of isolated civilizations. Here, in vivid ink and color, is proof of a globally connected intellectual network. The Kangnido map includes rivers and cities in West Asia and the Arabian Peninsula with a specificity that suggests its creators had access to first-hand accounts, perhaps from travelers who walked the deserts or sailed the monsoon winds. This challenges our entire timeline of discovery. If East Asian scholars had a working knowledge of the entire Afro-Eurasian landmass in the early 15th century, what does that say about the flow of information? It suggests that the great European age of exploration was not the beginning of global awareness, but rather the moment one regional power finally caught up to a knowledge base that had been circulating elsewhere for generations. The map is a silent witness to unrecorded voyages and diplomatic missions, to the whispers of merchants in bustling caravanserai who described the world beyond the next dune. It pushes us to see history not as a series of separate lights switching on, but as a slow, brightening dawn of shared understanding, where knowledge, like silk and spice, was a precious commodity traded between worlds. Yet another cartographic ghost haunts the northern seas. In 1558, a Venetian nobleman published a map that would ignite a debate lasting centuries, the Zeno Map. It purported to chart the voyages of his ancestors, the Zeno brothers, who allegedly sailed the North Atlantic 2 centuries earlier in the 1390s. The map depicts a sprawling, phantom island called Frisland, lying southeast of Greenland, alongside detailed coastlines that some researchers argue could be parts of North America. If this map is a true record, it would mean Italian sailors reached the New World nearly 100 years before Columbus. The detail is what captivates and confounds, with intricate bays, capes, and a wealth of place names that suggest a deep, first-hand familiarity with these shores, not a vague traveler's tale. This level of specificity is the heart of the mystery. Could it really be based on a genuine, though now lost, pilot's log from the 14th century? Skeptics point to the fact that Frisland has never been found, arguing the entire map is an elaborate fabrication, a clever hoax designed to bolster Venetian prestige in an age of Spanish and Portuguese dominance. They suggest the creator simply compiled existing myths and misidentified landmarks to create a compelling fiction. Yet other historians counter that the map's accuracy in other areas, such as its rendering of Greenland and Iceland, is too pronounced to be purely invented. They propose that Frisland was not a fiction, but a persistent misidentification, perhaps a composite of the Faroe Islands seen through stormy seas and faulty celestial readings. The controversy forces us to ask what we consider proof. A single map, emerging from a family's private papers long after the alleged voyages, is a fragile thread on which to hang a historical revolution. Yet its very existence speaks to the blurred line between discovery and deception in the age of exploration. The Zeno Map is a perfect example of how every ancient chart we encounter is a palimpsest, a layered document where hard-won navigational truth might be interwoven with honest mistakes, patriotic pride, and outright forgery. To understand these maps, we must learn to read not just the coastlines, but the human motives etched between them. While European sailors relied on secret charts, Arab navigators were compiling their knowledge into open books of the sea. In the late 15th century, a master mariner named Ahmad ibn Majid wrote a definitive text, the Kitab al-Fawaid, or the Book of Useful Lessons. This was not a single map, but an entire maritime university bound between covers. It provided meticulous instructions for sailing the entire Indian Ocean, from the coast of East Africa to the Spice Islands of Indonesia. Ibn Majid detailed the precise rising and setting of stars for navigation, described the shifting patterns of ocean currents, and catalogued coastal landmarks with the clarity of a modern pilot's guide. His work reveals a science of wayfinding built on generations of accumulated experience, a system so refined it could reliably guide a wooden dhow across thousands of miles of open water. The key to this vast trade network was the deep understanding of the monsoon winds. Arab and Indian sailors did not fight the ocean, they partnered with it. They knew exactly when the seasonal winds would shift to carry them east to India, and when they would reverse to bring them home to Arabia laden with spices, textiles, and gems. This predictable rhythm turned the Indian Ocean into a bustling maritime highway, connecting cultures from Swahili city-states to Chinese ports. The legacy of this knowledge had a direct and profound impact on European history. When the Portuguese explorer Vasco da Gama struggled to cross from East Africa to India in 1498, local records suggest he secured the services of an Arab navigator. Some historians believe it may have been Ibn Majid himself. This pilot, using the very knowledge contained in texts like the Kitab al-Fawaid, guided the European fleet directly to the Indian port of Calicut. In a stunning historical irony, Europe's celebrated sea route to the riches of the East was unlocked not by European ingenuity alone, but with the indispensable aid of Arabic nautical science. These texts remind us that the great age of exploration was not a solitary European endeavor, but a mosaic of interconnected discoveries. They showcase a vibrant maritime culture where knowledge was a currency as valuable as any spice, traded and refined across continents, enabling a level of global connection that would not be seen again for centuries. Yet another map from the Middle Ages presents a worldview that is entirely different in its purpose. In the Hereford Cathedral in England, a massive piece of vellum drawn around 1300 presents not the coastlines known to sailors, but the spiritual landscape of the medieval mind. This is the Hereford Mappa Mundi, a map where geography surrenders completely to faith. Jerusalem sits at the very center of the circular world, a deliberate placement showing it as the spiritual heart of creation. East is at the top, for that is the direction of paradise, and scattered across the continents are vivid illustrations of biblical events, classical myths, and strange beings said to inhabit the Earth's distant edges. You will find the Garden of Eden, the Tower of Babel, and the location of Noah's Ark, all charted as real places. The map is populated with creatures both wondrous and unsettling, from the Cyapod, a man using his single giant foot for shade, to the headless blemishes who carry their faces on their chests. To our modern eyes, this seems like a work of pure fantasy, but for the person who created it and the community that viewed it, this was a true map of reality. It was a visual sermon designed not to guide a traveler across the sea, but to guide a soul through the cosmos of Christian belief. Its inaccuracies are not errors, they are features. The world was understood as a stage for divine drama, and every strange creature in a distant land served to illustrate the boundless creativity and mystery of God's creation. This map asks us to expand our definition of what a map can be. It was a teaching tool, an object of contemplation, and a declaration that the most important journeys are not physical but spiritual. When you compare the precise room lines of a Portolan chart to the symbolic richness of the Mappa Mundi, you see two parallel truths about the past. One reveals a world measured by the stars and the compass, the other a world understood through scripture and symbol. Both were valid, both were maps. And the existence of the Mappa Mundi forces a profound question. If our own maps today are filled with symbols of our culture's priorities, from financial districts to digital networks, what will future historians deduce was truly at the center of our world? While European scholars were compiling world maps from foreign sources, China was producing its own from direct, massive exploration. In the early 15th century, the Ming dynasty dispatched a fleet of such colossal scale it defies modern comprehension. Commanded by the Admiral Zheng, these treasure ships were floating cities, some reportedly over 400 feet long, dwarfing the tiny vessels Columbus would sail decades later. Their mission was to project Chinese power and establish trade across the known world, and they succeeded, reaching the coast of East Africa. The navigational records of these epic voyages were later compiled into a single document known as the Mao-Kun Map. This was not a single sheet but a long scroll, a strip map detailing the entire journey from China to Africa. It features meticulously drawn coastlines, notes on water depth, and sailing directions for reaching every major port in the Indian Ocean. The level of practical detail is astounding, marking submerged rocks, safe anchorages, and even the best seasons to sail specific legs of the journey. This was a working document for the world's largest navy, a testament to a maritime prowess that had no rival at the time. The map reveals that Chinese knowledge of the world was not theoretical, it was empirical, earned through thousands of voyages across thousands of miles. They knew the shape of Java, the ports of India, and the trading cities of the Swahili coast with intimate precision. This mastery, however, was shockingly brief. Within a few decades of Zheng's final voyage, a new emperor ascended the throne. The court turned inward, deeming the expensive voyages a wasteful extravagance. The great treasure ships were dismantled. Their logs and charts were stored away or lost, and China's moment of global maritime dominance ended as abruptly as it began. This decision echoes as one of history's great turning points. The Mao-Kun Map is a ghost of a path not taken. It makes you wonder, what if the fleet had continued its journey? What if, instead of turning back, those massive ships had rounded the Cape of Good Hope and sailed into the Atlantic? The detailed knowledge contained in their charts proves they had the capacity to do so. We are left with a profound and haunting question. What if the age of global exploration had been led not by European kingdoms, but by a Chinese empire that already possessed the ships, the maps, and the organization to connect the entire world? The forgotten lines of the Map map sketch the edges of that lost possibility. Decades after the age of exploration had supposedly ended, a French geographer presented a map that seemed to rewrite the rules of discovery. In 1737, Philippe Buach published a chart of the southern hemisphere that was utterly unlike any other. It was not based on new voyages, but on a grand theory of global geography. Buach proposed that the world's landmasses were arranged in a symmetrical, interlocking pattern, and his map filled the Southern Ocean with a vast, hypothetical continent he called Terres Australes. The most startling feature was his depiction of Antarctica not as a single landmass, but as two large islands separated by a frozen sea. At the time, this was pure speculation, an intellectual exercise dismissed by many of his peers as fanciful. Yet, when modern sonar technology finally pierced the Antarctic ice sheet in the 20th century, it revealed a shocking reality. The bedrock of Antarctica is, in fact, comprised of several large landmasses, and the terrain beneath the ice includes a deep channel that strikingly resembles the waterway Buach had drawn separating his two islands. How could an 18th century theorist with no physical data have produced a map that so closely matches a geography hidden under miles of solid ice? Buach himself claimed he had used accounts from early explorers, like the Frenchman Jean-Baptiste Charles Bouvet de Lozier, who had sailed southern waters in search of a great southern land. But some researchers suggest he may have also had access to far older source materials, perhaps fragments of charts from lost voyages that preserved a memory of Antarctica from a time before the ice claimed it. His work forces us to confront a difficult question in the history of cartography. Where is the line between an inspired guess and inherited knowledge? The Buach map's legacy is a profound lesson in intellectual humility. It shows that even a map that is technically wrong can contain a hidden seed of truth, a geographical echo passed down through generations of sailors and scholars. This challenges the very notion of a single discoverer, suggesting instead that our understanding of the world is a slow accumulation of insights, where brilliant deduction and ancient memory can sometimes, astonishingly, arrive at the same destination. Centuries after the great Chinese fleets were dismantled, a different kind of treasure was being rediscovered in the libraries of Europe. A text by the ancient Greek scholar Claudius Ptolemy, his Geographia, resurfaced after being lost to the Western world for nearly 1,000 years. Written in the 2nd century, this was not a simple map, but a technical manual for constructing a view of the entire known world. Ptolemy provided precise coordinates of latitude and longitude for over 8,000 locations, from the Canary Islands to the Malay Peninsula, and laid out complex map projections to represent the spherical Earth on a flat sheet of parchment. This was a system, a mathematical framework for geography that was breathtaking in its ambition and sophistication. His work was based on the collective knowledge of Greek and Roman explorers, merchants, and earlier geographers, systematizing centuries of travel logs and celestial observations into a single, coherent model. For Renaissance scholars, this was a revelation, a glimpse of a scientific approach to the world that had been absent for generations. It provided a structured grid upon which new discoveries could be plotted, fundamentally shaping the maps that would guide the age of European exploration. Yet Ptolemy's world was not without its ghosts. His most famous error was his calculation of the Earth's circumference, which he significantly underestimated, and his depiction of the Indian Ocean as a landlocked sea. These mistakes would later convince Christopher Columbus that Asia was much closer than it truly was, a miscalculation that inadvertently led him to a new continent. This duality is the core of Ptolemy's legacy. His work was simultaneously a leap forward and a limitation, a bridge of rediscovered classical wisdom that also carried old misconceptions. It forces us to ask a difficult question. How much of what we call a discovery in the Renaissance was actually a recovery? How much of the knowledge that fueled a new age was simply the forgotten science of a much older one, patiently waiting in a manuscript for its time to come again? Ptolemy's coordinates were a ghost in the machine of modern cartography, an ancient algorithm that began recalculating the world. A heart-shaped world rests at the crossroads of knowledge and wonder. Crafted by the French mathematician Laurent Fine in 1531, his cuneiform map projects the entire globe onto the elegant form of a heart, a stunning fusion of Renaissance art and emerging science. This was not merely a decorative choice, it was a philosophical statement about the world itself, a representation that embraced both the hard-won data from recent voyages and the enduring wisdom of classical authorities. The map presents a fascinating snapshot of a mind and an era caught between two worlds. On one hand, it incorporates up-to-the-minute details of the Americas, drawing on the latest accounts from Spanish and Portuguese explorers to sketch the coastlines of the Caribbean and South America with surprising clarity. Yet, right beside these new truths lay the stubborn ghosts of geography past, a massive, undiscovered southern continent labeled Terra Australis, a mythical land that scholars had insisted must exist to balance the northern landmasses. This juxtaposition is the map's true power. It does not hide the uncertainty of the age, it celebrates it. Fine was not just a mapmaker, he was a storyteller, weaving together the confident lines of measured discovery with the alluring blank spaces of the unknown, all framed within a symbol of passion and humanity. The very projection he used was a radical intellectual experiment. How do you flatten a sphere onto a page without distorting its true relationships? The heart shape with its curved lobes was Fine's artistic and mathematical answer to this fundamental cartographic problem, an attempt to preserve proportions and directions in a way that a simple rectangular grid could not. This challenges us to see maps not as passive windows to the world, but as active interpretations. Every map is an argument, a perspective shaped by the knowledge, biases, and artistic sensibilities of its creator. The Laurent Fine map is a beautiful reminder that our understanding of the world has never been a simple linear progression from error to truth. It is a constant, heartfelt negotiation between what we have seen with our own eyes and what we dare to dream lies just beyond the horizon. A masterpiece of gold leaf and vibrant color, the Catalan Atlas was far more than a map. It was a medieval vision of the entire known world. Crafted on the island of Majorca in 1375, this expansive work consisted of 12 richly illustrated panels that stretched the geography from the Atlantic coasts of Europe and Africa all the way to the court of the Great Khan in China. It was created by the skilled Jewish cartographer Abraham Cresques, and it served as a royal gift from the King of Aragon to the French court. This was not a secret chart for sailors, but a grand statement of political and economic ambition, designed to display the breadth of a kingdom's connections and the depth of its global understanding. The atlas is alive with detail, depicting trade routes as golden lines snaking across deserts and seas, marking bustling port cities, and illustrating powerful rulers like Mansa Musa, the legendary emperor of Mali, seated upon his golden throne. Its portrayal of West Africa is particularly stunning, showing the Sahara not as a barren void but as a traversable space dotted with oases and caravan routes, with the great trading city of Timbuktu clearly marked. This knowledge did not come from European explorers who had not yet ventured so far south, but was drawn directly from Arab geographical texts and the first-hand accounts of North African merchants who controlled the trans-Saharan trade. The atlas even includes notes on local customs, goods, and economies, transforming it into an early form of ethnographic guide. It tells us, for instance, that a certain region produced brass, while another was known for its pepper, offering a window into the lives of distant cultures. How did a workshop on a Mediterranean island compile such a comprehensive view of the world? Majorca was a crossroads, a hub where Jewish, Christian, and Muslim scholars, merchants, and navigators exchanged not only goods but information. Abraham Cresques acted as a master synthesizer, weaving together Portuguese sailing charts, Arab world maps, and the travelogues of men like Marco Polo into a single, breathtaking tapestry. The Catalan Atlas stands as a monumental testament to the collaborative spirit of medieval inquiry, proving that long before the age of national exploration, knowledge was a currency traded freely between cultures, building a picture of the world that was far more accurate and interconnected than we often imagine. Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks reveal a mind that refused to separate art from science. Among his many visionary sketches are maps of the Italian region of Tuscany. Rendered with such startling geometric clarity, they seem to view the land from a bird's perspective, centuries before human flight made such a vantage point possible. These were not mere copies of existing charts, but radical reinterpretations of the landscape itself. Da Vinci approached geography as a living system. His deep fascination with hydrology, the movement of water, led him to meticulously chart river basins and watersheds, understanding that the flow of a stream shaped the destiny of the valley it carved. His topographical studies captured the subtle rise and fall of the land with a precision that feels almost modern, blending acute observation with an artist's sensitivity to form and shadow. For Leonardo, a map was not a static record, but a dynamic portrait of a world in constant, flowing conversation with its own elements. He saw the Earth's skin as a complex tapestry of forces, where every mountain and river told a story of erosion, growth, and change. This holistic vision transformed cartography from a tool for navigation into a method for understanding the very mechanics of nature. His legacy urges us to reconsider what a map can be. It is not just a line on a page, but an interdisciplinary bridge connecting geology to art, physics to philosophy. Da Vinci's maps challenge us to see the world not as a collection of fixed locations, but as a vibrant, interconnected system, forever being redrawn by the hand of time. Deep in the soil of a Romanian village, 3 small clay tablets were unearthed, their surfaces etched with a series of enigmatic symbols. Known as the Tartaria tablets, these artifacts date to an astonishing 5300 BC, a time when much of Europe was still cloaked in primal forests. To the untrained eye, they are simple geometric marks, but to some researchers, they represent a seismic possibility, a potential system of writing or symbolic mapping that predates the earliest known Sumerian cuneiform by over 1,000 years. The symbols are arranged in deliberate groupings, some resembling stylized animals or plants, while others look remarkably like schematic diagrams of fields or river valleys. Could these be the cartographic notes of a lost Neolithic culture, a way to record the landscape they depended on for survival? If these markings are indeed a primitive form of mapping, the entire timeline of human geography would need to be rewritten, pushed back by millennia. This is not just about shifting dates on a chart. It challenges the very core of our assumptions about when and where complex communication began. We often envision prehistory as a silent epoch, but artifacts like these whisper a different story. They suggest that the human impulse to record, to chart, and to communicate our place in the world is far more ancient than we ever suspected. The controversy surrounding the tablets is a debate about the nature of intelligence itself. Were our Neolithic ancestors merely surviving, or were they observing, calculating, and preserving their knowledge in a symbolic language we have yet to fully decipher? Exploring such artifacts forces a humbling realization. Human ingenuity is not a linear progression from primitive to advanced, but a recurring spark that has illuminated different corners of the globe across countless generations. The true map we are trying to read may not be of land, but of the human mind itself and its profound, timeless capacity to make its mark upon the world. A world consumed by its own final days unfolds across the pages of the Beatus manuscripts. These 10th century texts, commentaries on the apocalypse, are accompanied by some of the most spiritually charged maps ever created. The Saint Sever Beatus map presents a circular world not for sailors but for souls. At its very top lies the Garden of Eden, a radiant realm separated from our own by a ring of fire. The continents are simplified into a symbolic pattern, with Asia dominating the upper half and Europe and Africa below, all surrounded by a great ocean. But it is within this ocean that the map's true purpose is revealed. Here, in the distant corners of the earth, dwell the monstrous races described by ancient writers, beings with giant ears or faces on their chests. These were not considered fantasies by the medieval mind, but real inhabitants of God's creation, living testament to the strange and wondrous diversity of a world awaiting its final judgment. This was apocalyptic cartography, a visual guide to the cosmos as understood through faith. Every element, from the placement of Jerusalem near the center to the 12 winds blowing from the edges, was a piece of a vast theological puzzle. The map was a teaching instrument used by monks to explain the path of salvation history from creation to the end of time. Its distorted geography was not an error of measurement, but a deliberate choice to prioritize spiritual truth over physical accuracy. The world was a stage for a divine drama, and the map was its program. What can we learn from these beautiful, bewildering charts? They force us to acknowledge that every map, no matter how scientific, is ultimately a reflection of a worldview. Our own modern maps, with their precise satellite imagery, still carry the invisible weight of our priorities, highlighting political borders, economic centers, and digital networks. The Beatus maps remind us that to understand a culture, we must look at how it draws its world, for in those lines we find its deepest fears, its highest hopes, and the shape of the universe it believes it inhabits. High on the arid plains of the Golan Heights, a sprawling monument of dark basalt stones has baffled researchers for generations. This is Zheng el-Hiri, a massive complex of concentric circles dating back over 5,000 years to a time when the Great Pyramids of Egypt were still centuries from being built. From the ground, it appears as a colossal labyrinth, a tangle of low stone walls. But from above, its true geometric precision is revealed, a series of near-perfect rings radiating from a central cairn. The name Zheng el-Hiri translates to stone heap of the wild cat, a poetic label that does little to explain its original purpose. Many researchers now believe it functioned as a sophisticated celestial calendar, an astronomical observatory carved into the very landscape. On the mornings of the summer and winter solstices, the rising sun aligns perfectly with specific openings in the walls, casting beams of light into the central chamber in a predictable annual rhythm. This was not just a way to mark the seasons, it was a way to map the heavens onto the earth. The entire structure can be seen as a kind of map, a permanent, physical chart of solar movement and cosmic order. It encoded the relationship between the land, the sky, and the passage of time into a form that could be read by an entire community. This idea transforms Zheng el-Hiri from a mere monument into a profound cartographic artifact, one of the earliest examples of humans creating a large-scale, three-dimensional model of their understanding of the cosmos. Its construction required not only immense communal effort, but also a deep, accumulated knowledge of astronomy that was passed down through generations. What does this tell us about the people who built it? They were not just farmers or herders, they were keen observers of their world, systematizing their observations into a durable, shared reference point. The stones themselves become a language, a silent code for predicting seasonal changes, planning agricultural cycles, and perhaps even guiding nomadic routes. This site blurs the line between architecture and geography, between a ritual space and a practical tool for survival. It forces us to expand our search for ancient maps beyond parchment and vellum, to look for them etched into the earth itself. If a circle of stones can be a calendar and a map of the sky, then how many other forgotten landscapes around the world hold similar secrets, waiting to be read not as ruins, but as the first chapters in humanity's long quest to chart its place in the universe? While the Catalan Atlas was a public display of global knowledge, Spain maintained a far more secretive chart, one that was never meant for public eyes. This was the Padrón Real, the Royal Register, a master world map kept under strict guard in the Casa de Contratación in Seville. It was not a static artifact but a living document, constantly evolving with each returning ship. Whenever a Spanish captain like Magellan completed a voyage, he was legally required to report his findings to the royal cosmographers, who would then meticulously update the master chart with new coastlines, islands, and hazards. This created a collective, centralized intelligence of the entire known world, a geographic database that gave the Spanish crown an unparalleled strategic advantage. The map itself became an instrument of state power, a closely guarded secret more valuable than any single galleon's treasure. To protect this advantage, the Padrón Real was also a tool of deliberate deception. Rival nations could not be allowed to benefit from Spanish exploration, so cartographers would sometimes omit certain passages or alter the longitude of a critical strait, creating subtle traps for any foreign agent who managed to steal a copy. A bay rich with fresh water might be left off the chart, or a safe harbor might be drawn a few degrees out of place, enough to lead a competing fleet into danger or to miss a vital resupply point entirely. This practice reveals a profound truth about the history of cartography. It has never been a purely scientific pursuit of objective truth. From its earliest days, the drawing of maps has been deeply intertwined with politics, espionage, and economic intrigue. The lines on the Padrón Real were not just geographical features, they were declarations of ownership and instruments of control, carefully crafted to guide friends and mislead enemies in the high-stakes race for global empire. One of the most revealing maps in history is drawn on the skin of a single sheep. The Gough Map of Great Britain, created in the 14th century, presents the island not as a mythical landscape, but as a practical network of destinations. This is not a map for contemplating the heavens, but for navigating the earth. It details a web of roads connecting towns like Lincoln and York, traces the winding paths of rivers like the Thames and the Severn, and marks hundreds of settlements with a clarity that feels centuries ahead of its time. Its origins are a mystery, with no author or patron credited, yet its purpose seems deeply administrative. It may have been a tool for royal officials traveling the countryside to collect taxes or dispense justice, a single document that gave the crown a tangible vision of the realm it governed. How could such an accurate representation be compiled without the benefit of aerial surveys or standardized measurement? The answer lies in the accumulation of countless local journeys. The map is likely a compilation, a synthesis of knowledge gathered from merchants carrying goods along muddy tracks, from pilgrims walking to distant shrines, and from soldiers marching between garrison towns. Each of these travelers held a mental fragment of the landscape, knowing the distance from one market town to the next, the best place to ford a river, or the location of a reliable inn. The anonymous cartographer acted as a master weaver, threading these individual strands of experience into a coherent national tapestry. The precision of the Gough map speaks to a highly organized medieval society, one capable of systematizing the intimate, ground-level knowledge of its people into a functional tool for the state. It reminds us that a map can be a record of collective memory, a physical manifestation of the paths walked by generations. This shifts our focus from grand explorers to the anonymous millions whose daily travels, when pieced together, slowly and surely charted the world right outside their doors. Centuries before explorers set sail, philosophers were already puzzling over the mechanics of the sea. A text known as the Problematta, once attributed to Aristotle, posed a deceptively simple question: why does a ship sailing away from shore seem to sink into the horizon, with the hull vanishing from view long before the mast? This was not just an idle thought experiment. It was a profound observation of the natural world. The answer, which the text correctly deduced, was the curvature of the Earth. The vessel was not sinking, but simply following the curve of the planet, disappearing from the bottom up. This intellectual leap connected a visible phenomenon to an invisible truth about our world's shape. It meant that long before we had circumnavigated the globe, its spherical nature was being reasoned out from the deck of a boat. This interplay between abstract thought and hands-on experience was the engine of maritime progress. A sailor might not have read the philosophical texts, but he knew from daily life that climbing the mast gave him a farther view, confirming the same principle of curvature in a practical way. These ideas percolated through generations, transforming from philosophical curiosities into foundational principles for navigation. They gave mariners the confidence to sail beyond the sight of land, trusting in a cosmological model they could not see but could logically infer from the world around them. This relationship between the scholar's question and the sailor's logbook is crucial. It reminds us that our ancestors did not simply stumble upon new lands by accident. They were guided by a growing body of theoretical knowledge that interpreted their observations. The very act of mapping a coastline was not just about drawing a line, it was about placing that line within an understood model of the planet. How many other theoretical insights, now lost to history, once guided ancient mariners across trackless oceans? The forgotten maps we study are not just collections of coastlines, they are the physical manifestations of this deep, enduring conversation between the human mind and the vast, unknowable sea. Scattered across the arid plains of southern Peru, a gallery of giants sleeps under the sun. The Nazca Line's immense geoglyphs etched into the desert floor between 500 BC and 500 AD form a sprawling canvas of geometric precision. Spiral mazes, straight lines running to the horizon, and colossal depictions of a hummingbird, a spider, and a monkey are all rendered on a scale so vast their forms can only be fully comprehended from the air. This single fact lies at the heart of their enduring mystery. How and why did a people without flight create art for a viewpoint they could never physically achieve? One compelling theory suggests these are not mere artworks, but a sophisticated form of map-making. Some researchers propose the lines functioned as a monumental astronomical calendar, with certain shapes aligning with the sun, moon, and stars during key seasonal events, effectively mapping the heavens onto the Earth. Others see them as a guide to something more vital in the desert: water. They argue the lines chart the flow of underground aquifers, with the trapezoids and spirals marking points where the life-giving water came closest to the surface, directing their creators to precious resources invisible from the ground. While their true purpose remains one of archaeology's great debates, The very existence of the lines is a testament to a profound ability. A team of creators had to conceive a massive, coherent design and then execute it with stunning accuracy over generations, transferring a small-scale plan onto a landscape of epic proportions. This required a form of surveying and spatial reasoning that was, for its time, nothing short of revolutionary. If these lines are a map, they force us to expand our definition of the word itself. They are not a portable object you hold in your hand, but a map you walk upon, a chart integrated directly into the territory it represents. This challenges our modern, paper-bound perception. It suggests that ancient cultures may have encoded their most critical knowledge not on parchment, but into the very land they called home, creating a permanent record of celestial cycles or hidden water tables for their entire community to follow. The desert still holds its secret, but the silent, sprawling lines ask us a fundamental question. If a map can be a hummingbird traced across a mile of desert, then what other landscapes around the world might be hiding in plain sight, waiting for us to learn how to read them? The theft was an operation of pure daring. In the year 1502, a man named Alberto Cantino, an agent for the Duke of Ferrara, successfully smuggled a state secret out of Lisbon. His prize was the Cantino Planisphere, a massive and stunningly detailed world chart that represented the pinnacle of Portuguese geographical knowledge. This was not a victimless crime, it was an act of cartographic espionage that shifted the balance of power in the Mediterranean. The map revealed everything: the precise route around Africa to the riches of India, the true extent of the newly discovered land of Brazil, and the secret coordinates Portuguese captains used to navigate the Atlantic. For the Italian dukes, this stolen intelligence was a key to unlocking the monopolies that made Portugal unimaginably wealthy. They could now challenge Portuguese claims, plan their own voyages, and negotiate from a position of strength, all because of a single piece of parchment. This single event reveals a hidden truth about the age of discovery. The most intense competition was not always on the high seas, but in the shadowy world of intelligence where a map was a treasure more valuable than any spice. Men like Cantino risked their lives for these documents because they understood that knowledge of the world was the ultimate currency. The lines on a chart were not just geography, they were the pathways to empire, and controlling that information meant controlling the future. How many other secret maps changed hands in the back rooms of port cities, their contents determining the fate of nations? This clandestine war over knowledge forces us to see every surviving map from this era in a new light. Were they accurate records, or were they carefully crafted lies designed to mislead rivals? The Cantino theft reminds us that the maps which guided explorers were also weapons in a silent, global conflict for control. A world caught between myth and measurement unfolds on the Zeno World Map of 1457. This remarkable chart presents a planet in the midst of a profound transformation, its coastlines shifting from the familiar shapes of medieval imagination toward the rugged edges of a new reality. It incorporates the very latest intelligence from Portuguese caravels venturing down the African coast, hinting strongly at a southern sea route to Asia, a revolutionary idea that would soon reshape global trade. Yet, right beside these cutting-edge reports, the map holds space for the enduring legend of Prester John, a mythical Christian king believed to rule a vast empire in the east. It charts phantom islands like Antalya, places born from sailors' tales that stubbornly refused to vanish from the charts. This was not a contradiction to its creators, but a careful balancing act. They were not just drawing land and sea, they were navigating a fragile moment where faith, hope, and hard evidence collided. The mapmaker's pen had to honor the weight of classical authority and religious belief while making room for the disruptive, exciting news arriving from the very edge of the known world. To study this document is to witness the very process of discovery, not as a clean break, but as a messy, hesitant dance between the world as it was imagined and the world as it was slowly being revealed. What does it feel like to draw a map when the ground is constantly shifting beneath your feet? The Zeno map captures that precise tension, a snapshot of a moment when the old cosmos was cracking open, offering a breathtaking and perhaps terrifying glimpse of the vastness still to come. The silent coastlines of these ancient charts ripple directly into our modern world. The precision of a Portolan map or the startling Antarctic shape on the Piri Reis document provides a fixed point, a historical benchmark against which we can measure our own understanding. Researchers now use satellite imagery and geographic information systems to compare these old parchments with the actual landscape, and time and again, they find startling correlations. A bay drawn 500 years ago matches the satellite data almost perfectly, or a river's course, since altered by time, is confirmed to have once flowed exactly where the ancient mapmaker placed it. This is not just confirmation, it is a form of validation for those long-gone mariners, proving their skills were not mythical but methodical. Their forgotten achievements are now inspiring a new wave of research into ancient technologies, pushing us to ask how they did it with such limited tools. We are relearning the art of celestial navigation, studying ocean current patterns they might have used, and even looking to traditional knowledge systems like those of the Polynesian wayfinders for clues. This entire body of work challenges the comforting story of linear human progress. We prefer to think of history as a steady climb from ignorance to enlightenment, but these maps tell a different tale, one of peaks and valleys where sophisticated knowledge is attained, then lost for centuries, only to be painfully rediscovered. They are a permanent check on our intellectual arrogance. What can their methods teach us today? In an age of battery-powered devices, their mastery of environmental cues, their deep, patient observation of stars and swells offers a lesson in resilience and a different kind of intelligence. These artifacts are a profound reminder that humility is the essential companion to discovery. Every time we look at a forgotten map and see a truth we have only recently confirmed, we are confronted with a simple, powerful idea. Our ancestors were not primitive, they were pioneers, and their world was far more charted and far more known than we ever imagined. From the precise coastlines of the Piri Reis map to the star paths of the Polynesian wayfinders, these forgotten charts reveal a world already known. They tell a story not of accidental landfalls, but of skilled, purposeful navigation across vast oceans, a narrative that reshapes our entire historical timeline. The sophistication of this knowledge forces a humbling realization. Our ancestors were not merely surviving their world, they were mastering it with an understanding we are only now beginning to reclaim. These maps are more than historical curiosities. They are permanent challenges to our modern assumptions about progress and discovery. They whisper of a past punctuated by peaks of achievement and deep valleys of forgetting. So what remains hidden? How many other clues lie waiting in dusty archives, undeciphered texts, or even in the oral traditions of cultures still holding ancient wisdom? This journey into the world of forgotten maps does not end here. It is an invitation. Let it inspire you to look deeper into history's mysteries, to question the established stories, and to wonder what else we have yet to find. We would love to hear which of these maps intrigues you the most. Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you are ready for more explorations into the past, subscribe now, where every chart and every artifact holds the potential for a new revelation.